Hello, welcome to Make More Noise. It's been a while since we've done an episode, but there's something really important going on, and I was really excited to get the guys in and speak about their new group called Not All Gays. They founded in Ireland to oppose some of the agendas being pushed by NGOs like Tenny, and Belong to. We've broken one of our cardinal rules. We've actually got a man on the show today.
Who is it?
No offense, Scolaidh, but we have got an ethos of being a radical feminist, and we like to have conversations with women. But obviously, like, this is such a huge topic, and it impacts on men as well as women, especially gay men. So we're not afraid to chat to men every now and again. And when it's like somebody who's got a story as important as you, Scolaidh, we'll let you in, kind of thing. So welcome to the show.
Thanks very
Thanks
much
for
for
having
having me.
us.
I just want to put it into a bit of context for international listeners, those who might not be familiar with Ireland and the history of gay rights in the country. I don't really know where to start, so I thought maybe it'd be nice to talk about um, the legalisation of gay marriage, which I remember at the time I had a lot of gay friends, and it felt like a huge thing for young people in Ireland. I remember the momentum. I remember being with my mates and celebrating afterwards. People like sending their mates home to vote if they couldn't get over there, like funding them travel back over to Ireland. And I just wanted to chat a bit about that and how it felt for you guys. Is there actually a social change in the position of gay people in Ireland? Did it feel like something positive and good?
Yeah, I suppose I was 17 at the time, so I couldn't vote myself, but I had just kind of in the year or two prior kind of realized, oh, I'm a lesbian. So I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Like I'm getting to witness this big momentous occasion that we were legally allowed to get married. And I as a child was one of those girls who always dreamed about getting married. So the fact that then I was like, oh, great, I can that is still something I can do now. Like, so it felt great at the time. I don't know about you, Scully. How did you feel? Because you were 15.
Yeah, I was 15. I was more so worried it wouldn't go through, but like after it happened, like I was too young to really care that much about it. But it was a nice experience.
And it did feel that everyone was kind of supporting it, and it was a landslide vote.
Yeah.
So
Do you think it's led to like greater liberalisation? Like, is it generally quite a safe place to be gay in Ireland at the moment? Like, is it, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Like
Um,
most people don't really care. Like, why would they? What
yeah,
someone
yeah,
else is doing in their personal life. But most people
yeah,
are like just like, okay, cool, and no one has
yeah.
an issue with it.
Next kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but something, the legislation, something tacked on that was a little bit problematic.
Yeah, a little bit is an understatement. The Irish Gender Recognition Act was kind of slid in the same referendum without a public consultation prior, and no one really knew what it was going to, how it was going to impact us. And obviously then we now we have males in women's prisons,
Mm, yeah,
and it was kind of seen as this kind of gay rights movement because it was tacked in with marriage equality.
yeah. I think we're having this all around the world. This sort of tagging on of LGBT rights, and this legislation often slips in the quietly, and essentially just allowing men to change the sex on the birth certificates and women to do the same. But the real safeguarding issues arise from, excuse me, from from um from men. Excuse me. Um, how has this played out in Irish society, and how did you start to hear about it and some of the problems that arose from it, and some of this sort of complementary legislation that's been started to be brought in Ireland?
Scully, do you want to say how you found out about it?
Yeah, so I was, very much in with the whole LGBTQIA stuff until around 2018, 2019, and then after J.K. Rowling, that really, like, I got into lots of issues with my friends when I was like, I don't think she said anything wrong at all. Like, this is ridiculous. And then that brought a lot of problems. I lost a lot of friends for things like that. So then I started kind of looking into it a bit more, and then I was like mostly watching Ariel Scarcella, Blair White, that kind of thing, until I met Annaig, who really was like, oh, it's much worse than this. Really went into it with me, and I was like, oh, no idea. So.
Yeah,
Did you two know each other previously? Were you friends before you started this group together then?
Yeah, we were like acquaintances back in 2015, but we didn't know each other that well until I seen Annaig having a fight on Facebook with someone under the comments. I was like, oh, look, another gay who wasn't absolutely deluded. And then we had
You're
both
like
kind of
that.
fight on Facebook. And then, she texted me. She had a podcast at the time, and she was like, do you want to come on and talk about the LGBT community? And we've been best friends since then, really.
Yeah. I think this is a really interesting thing to see, the friends you lose and the friends you make in this. And I think it's really nice when you have a friend from your old life who carries on and you become activists together. It's like it's a nice thing to see. And unfortunately, I think a lot of us almost have to come and make a whole new friendship group when we get into this debate, because it's become so toxified. And I think for gays and lesbians, it's even more difficult, because a lot of the time your entire social network is immersed in these sort of LGBT networks. I don't know how you find it in Ireland, if there's the same kind of groupthink mentality around how people think about these things.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
definitely. Like for me, it was around J.K. Rowling as well, but because of how we knew each other from our past when we were 17 and he was 15, we were both kind of on the other side of it and didn't. So everyone was kind of just on the same page, all of our friendship groups. And then I slowly, like, I just lost contact with a lot of them, and I started to really think about it. And I, even when I was on the other side of the argument, I always knew that lesbians don't go out with trans identified males. Even then, when I was like, trans women are women, but lesbians don't date them. That was my, I I don't know the mental gymnastics I was going through, but then I started to realize the issues and the self ID and men coming into toilets and changing rooms. And then J.K. Rowling was part of my peak. So,
Mm.
but then I lost a lot of friends as well because of it.
Yeah, I think that's something that, like, so many of us experience, and it's really disheartening. Um, Especially when you feel kind of a bit marginalised anyway, and then this thing erupts in the middle of your social circle. I just wondered what the impetus was for you to start your group, Not All Gays. Was there anything that like took you from like just chatting about this on Facebook kind of thing to like, yeah, no, seriously, let's form something to oppose what's happening in Ireland? Sorry.
I think
Um,
one of the things was the biggest struggle we've had as like gays and lesbians, like, because we did grow up, a lot younger than when it was accepted, but we've been getting more abuse from the LGBTQIA for our views. So I think it was kind of like Not All Gays kind of stand with that narrative, and they're the people that are kind of abusing us, not society in general, kind of thing.
yeah. And then I think the biggest thing was because I'm involved in another group as well, from just being a rad femme for years, and I had like a feminist podcast previously, um of which now my co-host has now denounced me as well for starting up Not All Gays, which is just crazy, because it's just, I don't understand, because she was definitely very much on our side, and then all of a sudden changed her mind. But then I knew the two other lesbians from Not All Gays, and we met up with Scully one night. It was at the start of May, and the hate speech legislation that's coming in Ireland, they were going to be debating it in June, and we were really worried about it, because it's the LGBTQIA was being used as a battery ram to push this legislation through, and it's really frightening legislation. The guards, like the police force here, can come in can just kind of come in without a warrant, take every single device. If someone reports that you have made a hate crime or a hate speech online, they can come in, seize all of your devices. If you don't give them your devices and passwords, you can face time in prison. And then obviously if they find hate material, which could be a meme or just anything in your phone, then you could face up to, it's 3 years, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Yeah. So, but we just felt like all of these things are being done in the name of inclusivity and LGBTQ like protections and rights, and that we're so marginalized that we need people to not have memes on their phone or like tweet whatever on Twitter. And no one was happy, or most people were not happy with this legislation, people who were not gay as well, and because freedom of speech. And we were being used as kind of the face of it, like the gay community were being used as the face of why we need it. So we just felt like we have to do something because we don't want this either.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing. It's like we're being set up as the patsies, and it's a strange thing. It's like we're being held hostage, and the people who are holding us hostage are doing crimes in our name, and then they're just going to like fade back into the background. It's very easy if you're not really gay to just take off your lipstick and get yourself back with your wife, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
do you think a lot of us are fearing? A lot of the queer community are not really got much skin in the game long term, and
No.
this is something that's going to backlash on us. And I think I quite like, and that's why I quite like the name of your group, Not All Gays, because it's showing we're not all standing for this. We don't all believe in this. Like the majority haven't got anything to do with the LGBT networks, really, have they? They're just trying to get on with their lives. And I think it's great that we're showing some face and showing the world that we're not intolerant snowflakes. We can handle disagreement, and actually, we don't agree with a lot of the things that are society is being told these are what we need as a community. Like it's not really a community of anything really. It's just sort of a mishmash of identities that's been put together by corporate, really, isn't it?
And on top of the hate speech thing, it was that there's a lot of materials in schools that are being pushed that are based in gender ideology, even in primary school level. And because of our experience in belong to the NGO, we know that that's not appropriate for children. But it's being done in the name of LGBTQ. So we said, no, not all gays want this. We don't stand for it.
So the two main groups in Ireland, am I right? And there's Tenny and then Belong To, and they're more targeted towards kids. Would it be right in saying they're a bit like mermaids, but
yeah,
obviously not.
Yeah,
We're just transing kids. How do you know Belong To? I hear that there's some group members who are actually members of the organisation when you were youths yourselves, and how that's formed some of your thinking and some of your concerns around this issue.
Yeah, so that's around when me and Scully first met, was when we both attended, and then two of the other gay members, they also attended, but one of them attended maybe 10 years before we were attending. So
What
there was
time? What
issues.
time? What time frame was this? Just to give some context. When were you attending the group?
2016, 2017.
And then our eldest member, he attended when in about 2005, 2006. The issues were very different then, but there was still serious issues and safeguarding issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this is something we see across the board, and I think a lot of maybe some of the our listeners will be heard of the Sam Cowrie, who raised issues about LGBT Youth Scotland, who is an organisation that's also been lobbying the government, and there's been safeguarding concerns about the men. Basically, elder gay men are using it to groom young boys, often quite vulnerable boys, and there's a real problem with the age groups of these youth groups that, when you look at it, you think, oh, what are they doing together? What are the age groups in Belong To? From what ages can you go and attend a social group together?
It's 14 to 23, and it's mixed sex. It's
14,
outrageous.
like hanging out, like the 23-year-olds. They're not like supporting or like they're just hanging out. Like
Yeah.
just
Yeah, they're
hanging out
hanging
there.
out. What, like, when you, in, like, Scully, I think you said it on Twitter recently, if it wasn't an LGBT youth group, what group would be having 23-year-old men hanging out with 14-year-old girls?
Absolutely, there's completely different standards for straight
Mm.
kids and there's for gay kids, and this because the LGBTQIA community has this view that, oh, but gay people like are harmless, they're not going to hurt anyone or whatever. But it's like everyone's capable of doing bad things, including gay people, and that's just a view upon. I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say. I'm losing your words.
Yeah, no, I think there's this real blind spot where it's like people have been so groomed that they can't, because the tradition was to say gay people are paedophiles, and it's like the overcorrection is you can't ever call a gay person a paedophile, even when
They actually
you're
are
creating
one.
these loopholes of well, paedophile's going to go to that group because a normal 23-year-old doesn't want to hang out with a 14-year-old, does he? What are they going to do
So
then?
No,
I'm
no,
23
you
now,
also,
and I like that would be the last thing I want to do is go to a youth group and hang around with kids. Like,
yeah,
so
why would you
ridiculous.
want to hang out like, we're going to be down the pub. Like, why would you want to be with a 14-year-old?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think we all know the answer to that, and this is something that I've been talking about for years, and I know a lot of my gay mates are concerned about, and it's opening. You can see it. You can look at the descriptions on the internet, and I think more people should be asking questions, because I don't think this would be acceptable for normal, but inverted commas,
Non-gay
normal
people,
kids,
yeah.
non-gay people, because I think as well, because we've all almost seen as sexual deviants, because that's what the queer community think we are, and that's what they've been groomed also to see us as at the same time. So it's a bit like, well, gay
Or
boys for
genital
sex, they're going to be
fetishists.
horny, aren't they? They're just going to want to have sex with 23-year-old men. But I
That's
don't know,
illegal, though.
Yeah, we should be
So,
stopping them because they don't know the harm they're causing to themselves.
Mm,
Like,
yeah.
I'm sure we all know young gay people from when we were teenagers who were doing that and they didn't end up right, like they ended up with
Yeah.
some trauma and stuff because they didn't
mhm.
realize they were hurting themselves at the time by doing that.
I think this is something I've heard a lot of my like straight female friends when they were like 14, 15, and their boyfriends were like 26, and
Yeah.
now they're like,
Yeah, exactly.
they weren't my boyfriend, they were pedophile, and this is something I think all people who have sex with men, I think it's a threat to um it's a thing when you're finding your sexuality, isn't it? Is that some men will take advantage of that before you're old enough to know about appropriate boundaries
hmm
and to see things because you're just happy that somebody is treating you like a mature adult kind of thing. So,
Yeah, it's just grooming of a young person,
mm.
regardless of the sexuality. And then
Are there any
also when it's
Sorry, go on.
s- also in belong to when they're saying that males can be lesbians, it's giving access to males to young, confused teenage girls.
Okay, yeah, no, this is something else, isn't it? I think we're seeing the sort of the 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 base open up and the opportunities open up for male paedophiles and female male paedophiles who are interested in men and paedophiles who are interested in, well, sorry, girls and boys.
Yeah.
Do you have any stories to tell? Were there anything that was witnessed by any of the members when they were parts of these groups when they were kids?
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so the way, like, I was in Belong to for 2 years. I started going, I'd say, when Annaig started leaving, and I so it started off basically, you go into a room and then there's eight people there, you're all talking, you're having tea and coffee, and then after that you go downstairs and someone kind of does like the group, like, I don't know, presentation where they go through different things, mostly about trans issues, like binding, whatever. And we'd all go around the room first, your pronouns, and then it would be very much training you how to be social justice warrior, how to think properly, how to tackle these issues that are actually like kind of non-existent. But they kind of groomed you in that way slowly, and they'd train some young people to do these presentations. They'd be called peer educators, really fact check any of the information they were telling us, but it would be taught to us as fact about a transition or anything like that.
Okay, yeah. How was it for the female members of the group? Like, was there pressure on you all to conform to some of these ideas about gender identity and things like that?
Yeah, so I had a much different experience than Scully did. Um, I went with the girl that I was interested at the time. And she presented it as like a gay club to meet other gay kids, and essentially everyone else was identifying out of their sex, whether it was gender fluid, non-binary, trans. And at the start of the groups, before the talks start, they went around the room and made us give our name, pronoun, sexuality, and a fact about yourself. And every single person had a pronoun that was not, aligned with their sex, except for me. And I was so uncomfortable because I was just a lesbian, just a 17-year-old lesbian without a million other things tacked on. And then all of the kind of discussions around transitioning were towards the females transitioning out of their sex. So they were telling the adults, the youth workers would tell people how to hide binders from their parents, to wash it in the sink so it's not in the laundry, order it to your friend's house so they don't see it. Telling us that our parents and like family, friends, the world outside belonged to was against us because of our sexuality or gender identity, and that belong to was kind of the only place they were guaranteed safety.
It's kind of like, it's literally, it's like textbook grooming almost, but like on a deeper level of, driving that wedge between you and your family and doing it in the name of like gay rights, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and with the transition thing where they kind of focused on female to male transition, they'd tell the girl, like these young females who are vulnerable teenagers, how they could look more male and or less female. And but then for the males who identified as girls, they could kind of just do whatever they wanted. There was no real like, oh, this is how to do makeup or whatever, like present yourself more feminine. It was just like, oh yeah, you can walk in and have stubble and at the start of the session identify as a lesbian, and we'll all clap and cheer for you.
And there was also I remember I heard this off Annaig's ex actually before I was close with Annaig. I first heard about Belong To off and she basically said, "Oh, I'm going to a gay club, and this week they're doing trans training." Because at the time she identified as trans, she's not trans anymore. But basically, she was going to meet up and they were basically teaching people how to look more trans. It was the whole thing. It was like a 2-week kind of thing they were doing. And that was when I first heard about it, and I was like, I don't want to go to that. But then later, another friend told me about it, and that's how I ended up going.
Yeah. Is there any expertise in the group with adults looking in who have any kind of training in I don't know, like medicine or therapy to sort of to recognize that now this is quite a big intervention and it's not just like a thing you can just do off the cuff? Was there any kind of recognition in the organization that this was something that would needed a bit of medical oversight or any kind
It
of
was
oversight?
immediate affirmation. If someone announced that they were, coming out as trans or non-binary at the start of the session, the adults would look around the room and encourage us all to clap and cheer, like, and that if you misgendered by accident or whatever, you were shouted at and screamed at by peers, and the adults did not stop it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Did you find it quite difficult? You said you didn't identify as you were just a normal lesbian, like what they call a cis gay. Did you start to feel pressured to adopt an identity? Did you get a bit bullied for just being? I guess it's like cis. It's just being cis,
Yeah.
isn't it? And
I was very much ostracized by everyone. Basically the only people who spoke to me when I was there was whoever I went with that day. I don't know. And then at the start of the tea and coffee sessions before you'd actually start the conversation for that week, the negative talk about fucking cis, fucking heteros, disgusting, like really negative talk, and the youth workers would hear it and wouldn't intervene. They were like allowing it to happen. So I was sitting there as just a cis lesbian, um, hearing them talk about me like that, because I didn't have, you know, neo pronouns or some whatever.
Yeah, sorry, Scully, you were about to say something and I totally cut you off.
So no bother. I was just going to say there's also a strong political influence we belong to by the youth workers. I don't know if you've heard about People Before Profit over in the UK, but they're basically a very far left political party. One of the youth workers was actually a member of this political party, and her name was Gillian. She's publicly the party belonged to, publicly a politician. And she was one of the main youth workers. I think she was kind of like the manager of the youth workers, so you wouldn't see her too often, but she'd be there once a month or so. And there was 2 or 3 occasions where she came in to talk about People for Profit and kind of campaigned for the group, as if to push us to vote for them or get our parents to vote for them. And now, if you look at People for Profit, they're really pushing this whole trans agenda, and they were at Letwin screaming Nazi at all the women that were speaking. So,
Yeah. And they also advocate for decriminalizing, or like to get rid of the Nordic model and just make it legal across the board.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? No worse, no worse, and I think you're seeing hand in hand with the commodification of our sex bodies is the commodification of women's bodies more generally, whether that be surrogacy or prostitution, and sort of packaging them all together as one deal, and almost packaging this as a left wing thing, like human commodifications. I think that Marx would have liked or something, like never made much sense to me. You know?
Another piece of legislation coming in at the moment, now that you've mentioned surrogacy, there's a surrogacy bill coming in, and again they're using gay rights to try and push it through, as if we are entitled to rent some woman's body, because it's a fertility issue apparently. They're saying that it's a fertility issue for gay men to not be able to create a baby together.
Yeah, that's it's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? You know, and I think like a lot of things, like the majority of people who use surrogates are straight people, and it's sort of one of these Trojan horses of it's about gay rights, but it's not really about gay rights. It's about something else, really. And again, it comes back to sort of buying and selling women's bodies and seeing that as almost like a resource, as like a state resource or something. You know, like
exactly. It's
have
but
a
again,
baby for
like
some gay fellas.
Just constantly using gay people to push these things that are actually really damaging to women's rights and to gay rights.
Yeah, no, it's we see it across the West, and this is what I think a lot of people are realizing. It's a top down movement pushed by NGOs, and it's often got another agenda behind it. Is there anything else you want to talk to about your experience in these youth groups before we move on? Is there anything that we've not covered?
Scully, I think you need to say a few things.
So I'll tell 3 stories, right, that I suppose kind of will really give you an idea about it, and I'll go from best to worst. So the first one, I went for, I say, almost 2 years. I stopped going when I was 17, and in my early days there, it was during summer, and over a few weeks we had more and more furries coming in, and I was getting really sick of them coming. I was just kind of like, what are you like doing here? This is like for gay people and trans people, whatever. This isn't furries. And I was like to them, are you even gay or what? And they were like, no, we just identify as animals. It was like so stupid. So I put up like a Facebook status. I was like, I hope you furries go extinct like the animals you pretend to be. And then that got reported to belong to, and I had to apologize to the whole group, or I wasn't allowed to come back. And I was just thinking, well, why are they here? Like, it's not for them, you know? So there was really kind of a, like, you know.
But it's not even just the fact, like, why were they there? Because they have nothing got to do with lesbians, gays, or bisexuals. But also the fact that you made a comment not directed at anyone in particular, not tagging anyone outside of belong to on your private Facebook account, and someone reported you to belong to thought they had the authority to like force you to apologize or ban you from the group.
Yeah, it was a very much they'd encourage. Well, not they wouldn't say they'd encourage, but the atmosphere is very. If something happened outside it belonged to, tell the youth workers. And one of their rules was, don't talk about gay club outside of belong to. Like if you see anyone on the street, don't talk to them, pretend you don't know them, kind of thing, in case you out them. But it was very much keep a secret. Whereas they're also kind of allowing people to kind of say, oh, he did this on his Facebook or she did that in the park or whatever, you know. So there was a very horrible atmosphere with that kind of stuff going on. And another thing that happened to me, I was there about 2 months. It was September, November. They asked basically the GCN, kind of like the Irish Pink News, and they came in and they wanted to do a youth edition about, you know, we'd kind of write about our experiences, and a few of us put our name forwards, including myself. And during this, they were like, okay, you can do like, you know, the big back page of the magazine. You can write an extra long article where you use your full body picture, your full name, and all this. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And they asked me for my Snapchat during this process for some reason, and I like don't know. I don't remember the context, but I know from the email I sent them after that I never gave them permission to publish this, but they did anyway. And the day the issue was printed, the magazine that I mean, the article that was published with my name and picture was about God being a transgender woman and all this like mad shit. And it was written by some trans woman. And I don't even like it's just a load of shy talk and it's nothing got to do with my experience. My full name's here. I wrote an article about what was like growing up gay with the marriage referendum and things like that, those kind of aspects. And they just published this. So it that only got
The
removed in the last
the
month.
actual content of the article that they had mixed up and printed was by a trans-identified male that worked at the time for Tenny. I don't think
Yeah,
that
that's right.
person works there anymore, but like a just kind of a crazy article in the first place going on about God and how God is a trans woman, and but then put it with, did you say you were 16 or 15 at the time?
I was 16.
A 16-year-old gay boys instead, but with his face, name, and Snapchat.
It's a bit gloomy, that, isn't it? Like, there's no sort of understanding of you're quite young and you probably don't want your
hmm
details out there for.
Also, just to note about the GCN, they print and then they kind of just leave it in gay bars. So like that information was just lying around on tables in the George and Street 66
Yeah.
with a 16-year-old gay boy, but with the content was about being a trans woman.
It was absolutely like humiliating the whole thing. But they promised they'd, you know, remove it from the website immediately and that they put out a statement and they never did. It was only when I posted on Twitter about it in the last month or two where they removed it from their website. And I even posted the emails that I had with them where they were like, oh, I'm so sorry, this is an accident. But they never issued any statement. The next issue following that one was about gay sex and, you know, STDs and stuff. It was a very like, hyper-sexualized issue they put out.
Yeah. Well, I think it's becoming a turf. They probably got that article off there pretty quickly, then, didn't they? When they realised,
Yeah,
oh no,
absolutely.
And
erase
they
him,
have
erase him, never happened.
Yeah.
but they've also so I was approached after Let Women Speak in Dublin by a journalist for the Sunday Independent to talk about my experience and Belong to, um you know, and what I witnessed and how almost all of the trans identified teenage girls were, you know, suffering from very obvious eating disorders. And I can say that because I had an eating disorder as well when I was a teenager, so I knew what was happening. um you know, covered in self-harm, like in a very gruesome kind of distressing way, and identifying out of being girls because, you know, they were gender non-conforming. A good few of them were from like Eastern European families where their parents were not accepting of gay. Like I know a few of them. One of them who still identifies as a trans man. Um, that person completely homophobic parents. Was gender non-conforming, and even when I asked them like, oh, when did you know? And this was when I, you know, was on their side and very much fighting my mother about it. um I'd ask them like, oh, when did you know? Like, how did you know? And they'd always say, every single one of them would say, I didn't like wearing dresses when I was small, and I didn't like playing with dolls, or I preferred playing football with my brothers than, sitting in with my sister, like playing with dolls, or, I don't know, Sylvanian families or something that I would have done. And it was just like, I really didn't like wearing dresses or skirts, or I didn't like the color pink. And it's all this like gender, like just this super feminine stereotype of girls. And it's just because they were what we would have called, when I was, 4, 5, 6, tomboys, which was completely normal, and no one had an issue with it. And then they'd be, 13, 14, at the age that you might start going to belong to, and they realized that they were bi, or at least interested, or bi or lesbian, or at least, curious about, um, you know, girls. And then they went to belong to, and after only a few sessions, then they were like, oh well, maybe I must be a boy. I'm uncomfortable with my body because I have autism, or you know I have an eating disorder of some sort. I'm gender non-conforming and I'm same-sex attracted. So no, I'm just all of those issues are just because I'm trapped in the wrong body, rather than no, I'm actually a straight boy. That's why I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think this is something we see again and again, and it tallies with, I think, a lot of the Tavistock whistleblowers in the United Kingdom, the
Yeah.
gender identity clinic, where they found a lot of children the parents were homophobic, the children had eating disorders, self-harm, and there was this almost diagnostic overshadowing that when they came out as trans, that was seen as the root source of all of their problems. And if essentially what is happening is you're getting young lesbians and transing them into men, and then they're not a lesbian anymore. Ostensibly they're in a straight relationship with their girlfriend, or you know, and I think this is something that we're really struggling to get the message out. These groups are almost like conversion therapy centers, I think, from my perspective, and I don't know how you guys feel about that, but your experiences certainly sound like it's a huge bit of pressure and enablement
Well,
happening in these.
the girl that I first went to belong to with, I'm calling her, well, she's a female and she identifies as female now. But I was still figuring out my sexuality because I was like 16, and I had just realized, oh, I'm actually interested in girls. So I was like, oh, I'm bisexual, even though I'd never had like any serious sort of anything with a man. But I was just kind of figuring it out, and she was trans identified at the time. So there was lots of fights in my house with my mom. She was because she kept misgendering, and I was like, oh my god, you are so mean. That is my boyfriend. Which is so crazy. Like, she wasn't on hormones or anything, thank God, because like she obviously desisted. But because of belong to, I was like, no, I'm in a heterosexual relationship right now. It is so funny to me now that I'm that I'm peaked and I'm a turf, but like I was so convinced that she was a boy,
Mm.
even though like obviously not.
I can, you see, I can hear it in your voice. Like, you seem kind of a bit upset, and I think it's like this trouble. You're trying to figure out your sexuality, and you're young, and you're being kind of confused and about it, and it's almost like they're trying to be like, then you can also have sex with a trans woman because they're women as well. This very confusing milieu, um, where the
But
women are men and the men are women, and you're kind of being groomed to go against your instincts almost, aren't you?
like, even though when I like around that time when I was in belong to, and I thought, oh, trans men are men and trans women are women, I the lesbians and trans women was always my hard line. And I was first called transphobic when I was 17 in like a Facebook comment section, because I said, well, no, like lesbians are same sex attracted. That, and even then I was like, okay, I rationalized me going out with a trans man who isn't on hormones or whatever, because it's still same sex attracted. Like, I'm still same sex attracted. And realistically, she was just like, gender non-conforming teenage girl. Like, she just had her hair cut short, that's all. And but like, that was my hard line. And then the last time I went to Belong To was when, in the like introduction section, that a trans woman, or a trans girl, because he was a teenager, um announced to the group, oh, I'm a lesbian. And the adults looked around the group and encouraged us all to clap. And that was when I was like, okay, I can't be here because I've already been called transphobic online for that. I'm not welcome here. And that's, I was like, I can't be here. Like,
I also
I'm not
know who
welcome.
he's talking about, and yeah, no, he's not a lesbian either. He's like a fucking bullshitter. He was lying, like saying he's a lesbian. He's not a lesbian.
I know.
Well,
I know.
they're all lying, and I think this is kind of a really interesting thing, because when I was peak trans and all, the process where you come to an understanding, because there was always a bit of an I kind of believe in the woo a little bit. I hadn't really thought about it too much. But I think one thing that really broke down the barriers was, is there any such thing as a lesbian with a penis? And straight away my mind was like, nope. And then my brain went, well, if lesbians don't have penises, women don't have penises either, do they? And I was like, oh, and it's this mental trick that people can almost go to woman, but lesbian, I think it's a bit extra, and I think that's why there's so much effort put into grooming lesbians, and to say that no, lesbians would date a trans woman. They always have done. I think that's almost, they can see it's like a little weak point in the mental defense, in the mental armor that allies have.
It's just the same as like the old lesbophobia of just straight men not pretending to be women, being like, oh well, you just haven't found the right man yet. It's
Yeah,
just the same thing.
I think it's a they've just repackaged an old prejudice, really, and they're put shiny rainbows on it, and it's almost psychotic, really, isn't it? The fact that this is, the homophobes have taken over the asylum kind of thing, and now we're gonna face whatever backlash is coming. I am going to move on to talk a little bit more about your group, and I just wanted to check: did you cover everything about Belong To and your experiences there? Is there anything else you want to add?
There's one last
Yeah.
story that I think is important to put out. It's why I stopped going. And now there was a few instances very similar to this one, but this is one that I heard directly from one of the people involved. And I remember it happened. It was in April 2017. And basically, Belong To has 4 different groups. And this was, all of them are 14 to 23. But after this incident, they banned over 18s from the Sunday group. And basically, what happened was a 23-year-old, who I was friends with at the time, he ended up buying drink for a lot of young people like he'd normally do. And then he invited himself to the party they were having in someone's house, and he took advantage of a 14-year-old. And that was reported to Belong To. And I think it was Gillian or the lesbian youth worker who called him, I can't remember which, to say, you're not allowed welcome back anymore. And they banned over 18s without telling a single one of us why, which they should have, because I was hanging out with this guy. He could have done something like that to me. I was only 16 or 17 at the time. He didn't, though, just so everyone knows. But he actually told me directly. He asked me, hey, can you meet me in town? I'm very upset. And I was like, yeah, of course. Went in. I heard off him. And then I asked a few people who were at the party and heard off a few of the witnesses and heard off the victim what happened. And then I later found out a lot of incidents like this happened with other people and different adults involved. And we weren't told about the adults that were responsible, who were still going, or we were still hanging around with outside of Belong To, like all this. And this is exactly why you can't have adults hanging around kids, because you have these pedophiles that come in to take advantage of that rule and then take advantage of kids. It's just completely disgusting, and they don't protect us whatsoever. They didn't protect any of those kids.
Belong To, because they're working with children, they're a youth group, like they are mandated reporters for things like that, and they essentially told that male who identified as non-binary or something, that basically if you just don't come back, nothing will happen, which is like, they failed in their duties as mandated reporters to protect children. We also know from the eldest member of Not All Gays, when he was in attendance, that was kind of the shift, as well, that when he attended, it was all just gay boys and young gay men, like, you know, still way too big of an age group, and not appropriate, but it was just gay boys and maybe like one or two lesbians who were friends with them would come to the sessions. And then it basically the adults, like the youth workers, were taking advantage of their power of position, like their position of power, and were grooming the kids. And like, I can't name names obviously because I wasn't there to witness, and I don't know if there was any prosecution against any of them, but there was taking advantage, similar to what happened to Sam Cowie in Scotland, that they would groom the children, and would be having sexual interaction with the children.
Well, I mean, this is it's absolutely disgraceful. I'd like to say I'm horrified, but honestly, I'm not horrified at this point. It just sounds predictable, a pattern that we see repeated time and again, in not even in this country, in Canada, everywhere where you find these groupings, these age groupings, um, you're finding similar experiences, and this is like, these are organisations that have links with the government. Often, I know LGBT Youth Scotland was seen as one of the stakeholders in the Gender Recognition Act in Scotland. Um, belong to? Do they have links with the Irish government? Are they involved as stakeholders in these kind of consultations? You were talking about the hate speech legislation, surrogacy legislation.
Yeah.
Is there a
Yeah.
kind of relationship between the state and these groups?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
loads.
they're a state-funded NGO. They're in our schools now. They're kind of setting down the SPH, or the like sexual education curriculum. Um, they they actually have a manual, or I don't, since my article was in the Sunday Independent, they've kind of wiped their website of all of the evidence I have. I still have it all saved. They So I don't know why they deleted all of this stuff, as if like I've archived everything. And I have the hard copies of all of this stuff. But they had like their curriculum for primary school level, and everything is about like LGBT stuff, heavy on the T. Um, they are consulted, belong to Antenny are consulted for things like the monkeypox vaccine. I don't know why, like, I have no idea. They get consulted at every turn essentially at the moment. Education, health, um, what else? Because our minister for children is a gay man, and like that's fine, whatever. But he
Using that
sets
card
down the
to push it
he
even
sets
further.
but he has just granted them another between 25 and 100,000 euro to set up the equivalent of Stonewall's quality mark for schools, and I believe it's 57 schools have already signed up to it in the last week, that to have this quality mark that accounts for 35,000 pupils.
Is this one of the aims of your group, to oppose, belong to, and some of their agendas? What is it you guys hope to achieve by coming together and sharing your experiences, and pushing back, and sort of saying, not all gays agree with this, we don't agree with this, and we actually want to make our point heard? Do you have a strategy to deal with these fellas, and to try and shine a bit of light on it with the media and the like?
Yeah,
Yes.
our goal is, I think, is first of all get belong to our schools, get over 18s out of groups, because I think, getting them shut down is going to be a longer process. We all believe they should be shut down, but like, I mean, that's a very difficult thing to do. But if we can get small changes first, get them out of government, get them out of schools, get adults out of groups, that like they're all wins.
Yeah, but that's like, belong to is just one of the things that we want to tackle as a group. Obviously, the hate speech legislation was one of the triggers for creating the group. So we launched basically on the day that we launched. We already had our campaign, and we did like an emailing campaign. We emailed every single senator. Um, we were named twice in the Seanad. We were the only people that were mentioned in the Seanad, and I will brag about it because I'm so proud of that letter that I wrote. To just be like, you're claiming it's protecting these minority groups, but actually we're going to be criminalized for saying, we know that people are going to say that it's a hate crime for us to say I'm same-sex attracted, I don't want to sleep with a trans woman as a lesbian, because we've all seen how certain people behave online, and we know that they think it's a hate speech or whatever to say that lesbians don't have penises, lesbians don't have sex with penises. So we knew that there was going to be that, but also then like the backlash from people who also oppose the hate speech legislation, who are not part of the LGBTQ extended acronym, that they were going to blame us for this kind of like curtailing of speech. So we wrote to, and we've slowed it down. We were obviously not the only group that were involved in campaigning against it, but we did have an impact on it. It's slowed down. It's kind of disappeared off the agenda for now. So we're fingers crossed. It's I don't know, being kind of thrown out, and maybe they'll try and bring it back, but um, there's no sign of it for this term anyway on any of their agendas of going back and revising it. Um, and then the safeguarding, child safeguarding, like obviously of LGB kids, but in general, like there's so much, like the SPHE saying that, like for primary school level, saying that you can be born in the wrong body. That's simply not true. We all know that. We know that. But an 8, 9, 10-year-old doesn't know that. Doesn't know that, a man cannot be a lesbian if their teacher is telling them that. And so and then there was the issue of Juno Dawson's book, This Book is Gay, was being on a recommended reading list for primary school level in schools by our, like, the people who set the curriculum. So we just, but it's all done in the name of LGBTQ, whatever. And people are looking at us.
It's still there. Oh no. Do you know what? I think we're just gonna have to. I think we're just gonna have to go with it and hope for the best kind of thing. Can we start again? And I'll ask you the question again. I
Yeah,
know. Like third time's a charm. So what's the plans for the group coming up? Do you have any aims and objectives for the next year?
So we started with the bill campaign, and we wrote letters to this every single. I spent a long time doing individual letters about how it will actually negatively impact LGBT people, and they're using LGBTQ as a through. So we wrote a letter on our website, the template, if anyone wants to see it. Anyone who's in Ireland can use it as a template to send to government officials. So once that gets back on the government schedule, we'll be hammering on with that. There's also the anti-conversion therapy bill. We're waiting for the wording of that. We know that it's going to just force therapists to immediately affirm teenagers who think they might be transgender, and not explore any other reasons why they might be feeling dysphoric. So we to tackle that, obviously, it's very precarious, because we don't want to come across like we're for conversion therapy, but
It's a very smartly worded bill, isn't it? It's like who's for conversion therapy? It's quite difficult to.
So we're just waiting for the wording of the draft bill before we can fully tackle it. But that's something that we're waiting on. And the second it's published, we'll be pouncing on it. And then what else? The surrogacy bill as well. We're going to be, because again, gay rights are being used to put that, even mostly heterosexual couples that are actually buying buying women's bodies. They're using gay rights as a reason and saying it's a gay rights and a fertility gay men be able to have babies. So
yeah, I've seen Brian Dowling. Is he one? I've seen him going around giving a sub story trying to push through the legislation and
Yeah,
change. It's kind of changing the legal rights of women, isn't it? But kind of through the back door. Um, how can people find you? Where are you on your Instagrams? Have you got a website up and running?
yeah, it's notallgays.org. And then Scotty, you know the handle better than I do.
yeah. So the Instagram is not all gays IRE, and our Twitter is just not all gays. And I think that's all we're on now. We have a TikTok, but we haven't used it at all yet. Hopefully, we're gonna be posting on that soon.
Yeah,
And yeah,
get some content together. Is there anything people can do to support you? Do you need any support, or if they want to get involved, how can they best support you at this stage in your development?
Um, just I suppose, you know, keeping an eye on what campaigns we're doing and using the hashtags as they come out, like the hate speech one back up, you know, sharing as much as possible. Just more or less getting the word out about what we're doing. We don't.
and also like reaching out with your own perspectives is great as well. We love hearing it. And if you want to, get involved in any way, send us an email. We can keep in contact and hopefully work together with whatever suits.
Yeah, we have a group chat with people who want to get involved, and we kind of bounce ideas on how to tackle certain issues all in that group chat, which is there's a whole load of Irish gays in it. So we bring different issues to each other's attention, and we kind of just we work together then. And if there's anything that we want that other people want covered, then they'll say it in there.
Yeah. Well, I'll just put a shout out on the show. If any of you have got any skills that you think might be useful to the young team, website design. I know you got a website, but you can never hurt. It's graphic design, putting proposals, grant proposals. I'm sure there's some government money you could apply for. Anything, any experiences you've got, you can find them on the website and send them an email. Because I know when you're a new group, it can be difficult to launch, get yourself going because you're all running on voluntary labour and
So
sort
like
of
we all have full-time jobs.
yeah.
And like, so this is completely voluntary and just in our spare time outside of work. So any help or like suggestions on what we could do, that would be
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Is there anything coming up in the next week or so? Is there anything that they might want to look out for?
Is there, Scotty, do we have anything for the
Um, we're raising a lot of awareness about Belong To at the minute, so I'd say keep an eye on our Twitters for that, and just kind of stay updated on what's going on there. I think that's pretty much it for now.
Yeah, because today is the last day of Belong To Stand Up Awareness Week. So we've been using a different hashtag, Stand Up To Belong To, rather than their Stand Up Awareness Week hashtag. So just if you want to follow the stand up hashtag Stand Up To Belong To on Twitter, you'll find a lot of our tweets about it, raising awareness about what has been going on, the correspondence I've had with government officials that's been ignored, things like that. So if you want to stay on that, we're going to keep on the Belong To thing for the next while, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a good insight into some of the madness that's going on in Irish schools. I've heard there's some very interesting information on those hashtags. So if you want to
Yeah.
keep yourself informed and get an insight straight from the horse's mouth, rather than just having us biased turfs, hateful turfs telling you how horrible it is, you can see for your own eyes some of the stuff that's going on in Irish schools. I've seen a couple of things, and they're a bit.
Yeah, there's a young Irish girl, and she's still in secondary school. She has been well and pointing in individual schools, kind of is their peddler. That hashtag is moment.
Yeah, she's one of my favorite Irish turfs. I think I saw the same event you come up with. You might know her. She's an angry poet who did a "I am a T-Rex" poem, and that's not it's not the whole thing. But yeah, check out the hashtag, check out the group. Um, It's been great to have you on, guys. Look
Thanks.
forward to seeing what you get up to in the future. If you ever got a new project you want to come back on the show, let us know. It's been fab talking to you.
Brilliant.
Fantastic. This is Make More
Very much.
Noise. Please like, subscribe, and share. And yeah, we'll catch you next time.